I should read these things better. Everybody is mental here. We have Dick. I don't know. Can you see it is? It's just very summary. We have Twink. Twink is here. I tell you. And come on, Rubes. We have Ruby. Ruby Wax. My new little pet. My little petine, because Margot isn't mad about her at all. Oh, you don't eat the earrings anyway, whatever happens. Don't swallow the jewellery. Margot isn't mad about her. She loves Pearl, and Pearl is off with her now wherever they are over in the field there. But so Ruby kind of hangs out with me all the time. So much so that I even feed her from my arms. I pick her up in my arms and I feed her that way with the bottle. So, as I say, look at that fine bald patch now and the sun shining in it. Yes. Yes. So it has been a very, very busy week. Solace had her kids. Margot had her kids first. Ruby and Pearl. And then... It's so hard to... There we go. Woo! Come on, Twink. There's Ruby. And we had Solace then. Had her kids. But Solace had problem with the placenta. And the vet was out. So she's coming around. I mean, this morning she's been here now in the convalescing part. And she just walked up to the gate and like, I know I'm going to the field now this morning. So I let her in and she's fine. And her two boys are there as well. So these are the kiddies. And I'm going to try and go up to Grover as well. Somebody wanted to see Grover. You could nearly keep her at this stage. She's such full of antics, God bless her. But, yes. That's it. There's Ruby now. There's Ruby. And Ruby is part wild Irish goat, Irish mountain goat as well. Margot is good morning. Everybody looks wonderful. Oh, should they all look? See, I can't read. I'll have to get sunglasses or something. There's a lot of things I have to get. There's a lot of things on the shopping list. Yes, but I have all I need today anyway with my craters. Yes, with my lovely little craters. And Maxie's over there. He's sound asleep. He's not worried at all about me. I'll be down again now with the bottles after this. So yeah, it's been a tough week as well, finding out the house isn't selling. So I think I am moving down. I'm not too sure if I can afford it, whatever. It's all up in a heap. But anyway, we leave that till after the bank holiday. Tuesday morning we can become human again. We can just relax for the moment. I don't know if you can see all the goatees. They're all kind of spread out over the field there. That's one of Solace's boys there. She's away over. They're gas, I suppose, because they know they're corralled, I suppose. But the mothers just kind of leave the kids wander around a bit. And I think it's amazing. All the mothers, no matter how they don't get on with each other and don't know each other that well, but they all look after each other. You know, they all look after the babies. They might say, get out of my way, but... yes. Twinkles. Look at that, Twink and Dick. Maxie thrown over there for himself, not a care in the world. And Ruby. So, I want this morning, one of my favourite stories, I suppose, and because it is such a kind of a national mythology story, but it's based on locality as well. And it's about, there's a town here called Cahir. Cahir is town. And Sive is a princess's name or a girl's name. And Siveen is a term of endearment. Like if you really like me, you'd call me Shawneen. And a few people do and have done. And I'll tell you about that some other day. Working in a restaurant called Judge Roy Beans in Dublin, if anybody remembers it. But how Cahir Siveen got its name. And there's one little story, not a lot of people know this, but it's the story of Finn McCool, our great warrior of the Miletians, who did a lot of interacting with there's the two boys there. So this is two boys. Did a lot of interacting with the two and Finn McCool did. But his aunt, Turin, Tirren. It's like Murren with a T. Tirren, his aunt, went up to Donegal and she fell in love and got married to Unnad. But he had an ex called Ucht Dalav. Remember I was talking about Uachtaráin na HÉirdean, the president, the top of the country, and the Uachtarlun is a creamery, that cream that settles to the top in a bottle of unpasteurized milk, the Uachtar. So Dalav is a statue or a sculpture. Oh, debut. So she was kind of the head statue, and it got me thinking of, I can't think of them now. Gargoyles, like the head gargoyle, because a statue. And she was supposedly from the underworld, and she had magic, and she could do different kinds of magic. And anyway, didn't she turn Turin into a hound? And the hound ran off, and she was pregnant with Unad's babies. But instead of having babies, she had two hounds, and they became Finn McCool's hounds, Bran and Scialán, that you hear so much about. And President D. Higgins has two dogs called Bran and Mishnach now. Scialán, I think, died, I suppose the best way of saying it. you can't. I was trying to think of a nicer way to say it, but passed on. So those two hounds were with Finn McCool, and they were magical hounds. And they did a lot of work, and they did a lot of barking like Graver up there. So one day, Finn McCool had a great hankering for hunting around Killarney and the lakes and the forests of Killarney, because it was such a beautiful spot. But he, all the Fianna and all the hounds were hunting around Killarney, and they came down this direction, which is so much more beautiful than Killarney, Evera, even though if I do say so myself. And they started a deer. And this deer ran off, and she gave chase, and she ran about 3 or 4 times the length and breadth of Ireland, right around the full circuit. And the hounds and the men were following her. And nobody, after a while, a lot of the men gave up, and a lot of the hounds gave up. And the only 2 hounds that were chasing her were Bran and Scialán, and the only man that was left chasing her was Finn McCool. Twink is tickling me here. You are tickling me. So, can you imagine them now in a year's time? And they're tickling me, huh? You'd be too strong. So, the deer stopped, and the hounds didn't attack the deer like is their wont, but they could see something magical in her as well. So, look at you. So, they, let me get that. So, they stopped, and Finn McCool reckoned there was something different about this deer. So he brought her home finally to his enclosure. And when he did, she turned into a beautiful woman. And she explained her story. That her name was Sive, and she was a princess down here in Evera. And one of the Fomorians, one of the dark people, wanted to marry her, and she didn't want to marry him, and he plagued her, and he did all kinds of things until eventually he turned her into a deer. And the only way she could change back into a human was if she was in the enclosure of the best man in Ireland, and that was Finn McCool. And so she turned back. And of course, what often happens when you have a fine hero and a beautiful princess, they fell in love and they got married. And of course, Finn McCool stayed inside the enclosure because Sive had to stay there as well. And he kind of gave up a lot of the ramblings and the hunting and the work with the Fianna. And eventually, the Vikings came to the north of the country, the Northmen. And Finn had to go off and lead an army and stop this invasion and defeat the Vikings. So he had to leave, but he made Sive promise. Look at this one. He made Sive promise not to leave the enclosure, and he made the servants promise not to let her leave the enclosure. And everything was fine until one morning, Sive woke up, and who did she see coming over towards the enclosure? Only Finn McCool. And she ran out, and the only mistake she made was that Bran and Scialán didn't recognise him. If it was the real Finn McCool, the hounds would be out before her, or if they weren't, they'd knock her over trying to get to him. It was the Far Dorica, the old Fomorian druid, and didn't he turn her back into a deer and take her off into the countryside? Well, when Finn McCool actually came back, he was distraught to hear the news, and the servants were terrified to tell him. But he said, look, it wasn't their fault. They couldn't hold her, especially when she saw his vision coming, and they would go out and they would find her. Well, for 7 years and 7 long years of up and down the country, over and back the Fianna, they fought the Vikings, and any spare moment they would go off and look for Sive. And no sign. Until after 7 years, they found this little wild little boy out in the woods, and they brought him home. And after a while, he cleaned up and he learned to speak, and he told him his story, that he was out in the woods and the only mother he knew was a deer, and he would suckle off the deer. And this deer was very loving towards him and very happy, until every so often a dark character would arrive, and there would be a fight between the deer and the dark character, until one day the dark character hit the deer with the wand and she disappeared. That was Sive, and nobody ever saw her again. But that boy was christened Oisín because he was the son of Sive and Finn McCool, and he became a great poet, and he had his own story which is connected to around here, and maybe that's for another day. But Finn McCool, he had Oisín anyway, but he always missed his beautiful Sive, and she came from down here, and Cahersiveen is her town. And I really do love that story, to have it so connected to somewhere here. And as I say, Oisín has his own story, and that's beautiful as well. So there we go. That's the yarn from the barn. A little bit of wisdom now as well. And you know what I was thinking over the week? Well, I really did love that story of the scholar and the student. And be nice to everybody, because you don't actually know who they are. Can you see Dick there? I can't. Look at him, yeah. So we'll feed you on in a minute now, and I think you should... They won't go in the shade. I think they just love the heat. I think you just love the heat. Look at you. Look at you. So a little bit of wisdom, and it's about listening to your gut. And people always say, listen to your gut. But I found that it's important. There was one day years ago, I was going somewhere, which doesn't happen anymore, but I think I was going to Tralee or somewhere, and there was a goat I had, and I said, it just crossed my mind, she's going to break out today if I go away. So I tethered her, I tied her to a wheel, and she was still free to move around, but she couldn't go to the fence and break out if she wanted to. And I came back and she was exactly where she was, and it was very interesting because if I hadn't tied her and she broke loose, or she broke out and got free, then I knew my intuition was working and I just didn't heed it. But because she didn't break out, there was no drama. I wish I could see the comments now, because the sunshine here is just blaring down. I hope it's not somebody giving out to me and telling me I should be doing something else or whatever. But you get a lot of that. Yes, you do. But that's what I've started doing over the last couple of years, is if I get a little whisper, I write it down and I really try and attend to it. I kind of go, I might be up in bed and I get a feeling, go down and check the goats. And I go down and check and everything is fine. But I always just go down and check. If I've got that inkling, that feeling, I'll always go with it. And I write it down, so just somehow you can figure out, it's almost like first impressions of somebody. You might get a first impression of somebody that everybody thinks fantastic. They'd put legs under hens, they'd put wheels under hens for you. And you're not too sure of that character, and after a while, your assessment is fruitful, or it brings forward you were right. So, little things like that. But I do think it's good to write it down and see how things turn out later, because then you have a good catalogue of when your gut was right. So it's not just to listen to your gut, but know how to listen to your gut and to rely on your gut. Oh, look at that. Jeez, twinkle girl. I tell you, we could have a sleepover here, I'd say. We could have a sleepover here. Yes. Oh. My God, I'll have a fat lip after Twink. I will. And poor Ruby. I tell you, there's not much going on today now. Well, I have a lot to do, but I'll go up and feed these all again now. And that's great fun as well. You saw that the last morning. Yes. So, oh. Now look at that. Twink is taking the phone with her. Twink, you can't use the phone. You're too young. You know that. Oh, Ruby, don't eat my nose. Now, we'll go up and we'll say hello to Grover because she'll be loose now in a minute. She's going to go tearing around the field down here where there's no goats. And she loves that. Hold on, we have to get up now. So these lads, hopefully they won't follow because as I say, oh, stiff. Yes, I just don't trust Grover with the kids because she just doesn't know her own strength. She's so strong, God bless her. And, oh look. And if she started playing, she'd only be playing. But to those little creatures, she'd have them in two in a minute. So hopefully they won't. No, I'm going to try and keep them in here. Hello, Grover. Do you want to say hello to people? Oh, something gone wrong. Very good. Hello, Grover. How are you, my love? Hold on. Now, say hello. Say hello. Grover's thirsty too now. We might go down to the sea and cool off. She loves swimming. She adores it. Yes. So Grover's a lurcher, a green grass lurcher from Tipperary. She's part deerhound. And look at you. And she's a great girl, even though I do be giving out about her all the time. She is. She's great. Oh, here we go now. There was one fellow, one of the first days I was on the crater, he didn't realise. Ruby, no, this is a trouble here now. We have Ruby and Grover. We could have an enactment of Sive being chased by Bran and Shallan around the place. God almighty, they say don't work with animals or children. And it is all baby animals by me. Oh, they're all out now. Oh, good. Now, do you know, it's lovely being out in the sunshine, but my eyesight is so bad from living in the dark all the time. I'm going to leave it at that because I can't see, what is it, how far away? It's about 9 minutes walk. It can be quicker, but it's around that. But it's a mindset away because I'm no sooner at the house when I'm bringing down stuff because I have to go down my road, over the public road, down the road here to the fields. So if I forget something again, I have to do all that, and your mindset is changing. And because look at this, look, I have to be, hold on now. Look at this. I said, do you know, I'm taking my, we could have a very, now Grover needs a drink of water, I'd say, or a run in the water. And we all do. And I know, because if the goats ran now, Grover would chase them. So, yeah, so I'm not too far away, but at the same time, I am too far away because I'm just constantly chasing my tail up and down the road, maybe 4 or 5, 6 times a day. And I don't like to be in the house. I want to sell it and move on. So, but sure, look, we'll sort it out. We'll get there. It's all good. Do you know, I'm going to leave it at that because there's Grover needs a drink and I'm going to feed the goats as well now. And I'm going to be more organised someday. Have a lovely weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow morning again around 8:20. And all the babies are good. Look at Ruby Wax coming up now. No, you can't. There's Ruby. Come on, Rubes. She's got a white little leg on her like a racehorse. Little cuff. Dick is watching there. So everybody, have a lovely weekend. It's a bit short today, but next week will be long again. Twink now, you will get... That's all. Do. Have a lovely...